This is Under Review, the show that talks about Colorado sports with a sprinkling of national sports stories as well. I'm Jordan Long, and we will start in the NBA. The NBA's opening night is on Tuesday, October 18th, with two great matchups. The Philadelphia 76ers head to Boston to take on the Boston Celtics. To cap off the night, the defending NBA champions, Golden State Warriors, host the LA Lakers. There was a big trade that occurred between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Utah Jazz. Utah sent Donovan Mitchell to Cleveland. Cleveland sent Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, Ochi Yabaji, a 2025 first round pick, a 2026 pick swap, a 2027 first round pick, and a 2028 pick swap, along with a 2029 first round pick. Before this trade went down, I thought everything was settled in Utah. If you remember, there was tension between the two superstars, Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert in Utah. Both of them had said they would not stay in Utah if both of them were on the roster. The tension was part of the reason that head coach Quinn Snyder actually stepped down. I thought it was solved when Utah traded Rudy Gobert to Minnesota on July 6th. I figured now that Rudy Gobert's gone, Mitchell will be happy, and they still have a superstar. Well, that wasn't the case. The Jazz were still looking to deal Donovan Mitchell out of Utah. One of the places that was rumored, and it actually made a lot of sense, was the New York Knicks as a landing spot for Donovan Mitchell. It felt like Donovan Mitchell was going to end up there. Now, I don't know what the New York Knicks were willing to give up. I liked the New York Knicks roster over the Cleveland Cavaliers roster. If you look at their roster, the New York Knicks have some great shooters. This includes Jalen Brunson, Evan Fournier, and Julius Randle. I thought adding Donovan Mitchell would add another shooter to this roster. New York wasn't very good last year as they went 37 and 45. Adding Donovan Mitchell might even make them a play-in tournament or at best a 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. New York has missed the playoffs 8 out of the last 9 years. The only time they earned a playoff spot was in 2021 when they lost in the first round to the Atlanta Hawks. I thought New York made sense. It seemed like Donovan Mitchell was going to end up there. I also thought it would have been a better landing spot, that is New York, than Cleveland. He could help lead the Knicks to the playoffs. Plus, if you compare rosters, New York's roster is clearly better than Cleveland's. I am not sure what happened in New York, but for whatever reason, Utah stopped talking to the New York Knicks. Now, what I read was that the New York Knicks, of course, they felt like they had a better trade offer than Cleveland. According to the NewYorkDailyNews.com, the deal that New York actually had centered around R.J. Barrett as a centerpiece with multiple first-round picks. Maybe a couple of more players, but I am not sure. But all I know is that the Utah Jazz rejected it, so we will never know what the actual offer was. The Knicks didn't have a chance to counter offer for the Jazz. They really didn't want him. That is, the Utah Jazz really did not want to trade Donovan Mitchell to New York, so they didn't even let New York counter offer. Now, I'm not sure if the Knicks tried to call the Jazz when they rejected the offer for R.J. Barrett, but all we know is they rejected the offer, and the fact of the matter is New York didn't get a chance to counter offer. As for Donovan Mitchell, he goes to a Cavaliers team who earned a playoff spot last year as one of the play-in tournament teams. If you look at Cleveland's record, they were 44 and 38. They were beaten twice. They actually had 2 chances to extend their season. They lost to Brooklyn 115-108, and Cleveland still had a chance to keep their season actually alive because they were the 7-8 matchup, which meant they still had another chance. Well, they lost to the Atlanta Hawks 107-101, ending their season. adding Donovan Mitchell should end up making them a more improved team. Donovan Mitchell averaged 25.9 points, 4.2 rebounds, and 5.3 assists per game last year for Utah. He should be the main shooter, and who knows, those stats may go up. This added offense will take the pressure off of Darius Garland to be the only shooter on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Garland scored 21.7 points and added 8.6 assists per game last year. Both Garland and Donovan Mitchell are key to Cleveland's success this season. Cleveland hasn't earned a playoff spot in 4 years. I don't count the play-in tournament because you did not play a playoff series. The last time they made the playoffs was back in 2018. LeBron James was on that team. Cleveland made it all the way to the NBA Finals that year, but were swept by the Golden State Warriors. This trade for Donovan Mitchell makes Cleveland a playoff team. They are not a top 4 team in the East, so you're not looking at seeds 1, 2, 3, and 4, but maybe a 5 or a 6 seed. At worst, a play-in tournament team, but at least that's improvement if you're the 6th seed. So for Cleveland, they want to be a top 6 team in the East. Why? Because then you get a playoff series. Even if they don't get a top 6 seed, they should still be in the play-in tournament. Maybe this team wins their way into the first round in the play-in tournament, as they failed to do so last year. So a series is their goal, even if they are out of it in the first round. So we're going to move on to the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos season starts on Monday as they take on the Seattle Seahawks. Of course, this is Russell Wilson's return to Seattle. The Broncos haven't earned a playoff spot since they won Super Bowl 50, 6 long years ago, or at least to me it feels that way. Of course, their quarterback was Hall of Fame quarterback Peyton Manning, who retired following Super Bowl 50's victory. Since that time, the Broncos have only had one winning season, 2016, which is right after Super Bowl 50, when they went 9-7. 9-7, Gary Kubiak was the head coach. Since Gary Kubiak was the head coach in 2016, the Broncos are on their 3rd head coach. Vic Fangio and Vance Joseph have both been fired. Nathaniel Hackett is in his first season as the Broncos head coach. The Broncos starting quarterbacks are many since Peyton Manning retired. It's a long list, and here they are. These are all quarterbacks who have started at least one game for the Denver Broncos. Trevor Siemian, Paxton Lynch, Brock Osweiler, Case Keenum, Joe Flacco, Drew Lock, Brandon Allen, Jeff Driscoll, Brett Rippon, and Teddy Bridgewater. That is a lot of quarterbacks to go through. Denver thought that Drew Lock was the quarterback of the future. Well, he didn't play that well in Denver. The Broncos saw flashes of what he could do at the NFL level. In his first year in 2019, Denver went 4-1. Lock looked great. Well, after that, it was all downhill for him in Denver. His record as the starting quarterback in the Mile High City was 8-13. 8 wins, 13 losses. That is not great as a starter. Lock was a turnover machine, and he trusted his arm too much. Lock ended up with 20 interceptions. Lock had a total of 4,740 passing yards and 25 touchdowns. Lock's problem was he couldn't find his open receiver. Sometimes he threw the ball over the head of his intended receiver or into double coverage. Those were incompletions, tipped passes, and at worst, interceptions. The Broncos sent him to Seattle for Russell Wilson. Now the Broncos don't have to worry about another quarterback suiting up in the Mile High City because they have Russell Wilson. That is, of course, if Russell Wilson gets hurt or games are out of reach or it's a game that doesn't matter for them to get into the playoffs. If that is the case, then backup quarterback Brett Rippon, who won the backup role, will play. Otherwise, it's the Russell Wilson show. If you remember, the Broncos traded for quarterback Russell Wilson on March 16th, and actually he will be the quarterback for the next 7 years. He has 2 more years, including this year, on his contract, but the Broncos gave him an extension, which is 5 years, worth $245 million. Of that, $165 million is guaranteed. The Broncos have their franchise quarterback. With the Broncos season starting on Monday, they hope to have a successful season. So the Broncos season, they want to have a successful season. To have a winning season, it starts on offense. Of course, the NFL is all about scoring points, and Denver didn't do that a whole lot last year. They ended up scoring 19.7 points per game last year, 23rd in the NFL. That did not get the job done. The Broncos couldn't keep drives alive, especially on third downs, and they were mostly forced to punt. On third downs, Denver converted on 38.5% of their third downs, ranking 21st in the NFL. That is a terrible percentage. The Broncos need to be improved on offense this season. There will be times that the Broncos drives do stall on a failed third down conversion, but the Broncos, for the most part, need to keep their drives alive on offense. That will keep your defense on the sideline to rest while tiring out the opponent's defense. The Broncos defense didn't have the rest they needed last year. I think that's going to change this year. They would have a great stop only to have the Broncos offense go 3 and out last year. That basically tires out your defense if you're constantly, punting on third downs and not really moving the chains while your defense has to go right back out there after stopping the opponents. It's just not a recipe for success. Wilson seems like the type of quarterback who will at least get 1 or 2 first downs on drives to have the Broncos defense rest. Wilson has weapons he can throw to in Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton, and KJ Helmer. Use them early and often. These receivers should be able to catch the football and move the chains for the Denver Broncos. The Broncos ended up 19th in passing last year, averaging 211.4 yards per game through the air. With a better quarterback in Russell Wilson, who can actually find his open receivers, Denver should improve on that number. Of course, running the football will be key for the Denver Broncos, as that opens up the passing game for Russell Wilson. Their 2 running backs are the same as last year, Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. Both of them can run the football, and that will be key. Denver as a team rushed for 119.1 yards per game last year, ranking 13th in the league. Running the football will tire out the opponent's defense, and of course, you can control the clock. The offensive line of the Denver Broncos, though, has to create holes for those running backs, and they also have to block for Russell Wilson. Too many times last year, we saw either Teddy Bridgewater or Drew Lock running for their life because that offensive line could not block. Blocking will allow Russell Wilson more time to throw the football downfield. Last year, the Broncos gave up 40 sacks. They gave up 40 sacks last year, and that will not cut it this year. One key for Denver, though, is to protect Russell Wilson. They can't let him get hit or knocked around. The worst case is a sack, but creating pressure will not give Russell Wilson time to throw the football. On defense, the Broncos should be one of the better defenses in the NFL. It is difficult for opponents to move the ball on this defense, and it should be that way again. Last year, the Broncos were 8th in total defense, giving up 326.1 yards per game. Also 8th stopping the pass, permitting 214.8 passing yards per game. The one area, though, I want to see cleaned up is stopping the run. There were times where opponents' offenses, could run on this Broncos defense. The Broncos gave up 111.3 rushing yards per game. The best part of their defense, though, is even when teams went down the field, it was difficult to score points. The Broncos were third, only allowing 18.9 points per game. The Broncos have some players who can stop the run and the pass. Defensive lineman DJ Jones and Draymond Jones, as well as linebackers Josie Jewell and Bradley Chubb, are key to stop the run. For the passing game, Patrick Surtain and Ronald Darby will play tight man-to-man coverage to knock the passes away and pick it off too. If you look at it, they also have safeties, Kareem Jackson and Justin Simmons. So the defense is going to be great, but they must create turnovers. That way, you give the ball back to Russell Wilson and that offense to score points. The Broncos weren't bad last year in turnovers, as they had 13 interceptions and 6 fumble recoveries. The only question for the Denver Broncos for me is the punting game. Denver is going with a new punter, Corliss Waitman. I was really not impressed with him during the preseason. He had 6 punts with an average of 43.3 yards per punt, but his net average was 40 yards. Waitman had 2 punts inside the 20. That has to improve. He also only had 5 punts that were actually fair caught. So 5 out of 6 fair caught, not too bad. His punts had a lot of hang time, and they weren't line drive kicks, which is key because that didn't give the return man a chance to return it. What Waitman needs to do in the regular season, actually show me, is to flip field position. He didn't do that very much. Have punts land inside the 20. That way, the defense can actually, I should say the opponent's offense has a long field and the defense can actually stop them for the Denver Broncos. And if you do that, then it might give your offense, the Broncos offense, a shorter field than they would have if you go 3 and out, especially if you punt it inside the 20 or the 10. Actually, the best case scenario is inside the 10 because then the Broncos offense might get great field position. The Broncos, though, hope to improve on their 7-10 record. Of course, it starts on Monday night when they travel to Seattle. Kickoff for that game is at 6:15 Mountain Time. Now we're going to end the show with my NFL picks of the week. Now each week I will take 5 games that I actually find are the top games and give you my predictions. We're going to start with the Buffalo Bills versus the LA Rams. It's the NFL season kickoff game. Buffalo is a 2.5-point favorite. For the Rams, that offense is pretty explosive. Matthew Stafford is one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and he has one of the better wide receivers in Cooper Kupp. The Bills defense has to create pressure on Matthew Stafford so he doesn't have time to throw the football. For the Bills, they have an offense. I like their offense as it can match any team's offense. Josh Allen, their quarterback, has Stephon Diggs to throw to as his main target. And for Josh Allen, though, he will use all of his wide receivers. His offensive line, that is the Bills' offensive line, must give Allen time to throw the football. The Rams can create pressure with Aaron Donald. In the end, though, Buffalo wins it in a close game. The Las Vegas Raiders versus the LA Chargers. The LA Chargers are a 3-point favorite. I love divisional matchups. The Raiders and the Chargers both have quarterbacks who can throw the football on any defense. The Raiders have Derek Carr, while the Chargers have Justin Herbert. The Raiders and the Chargers can also run the football. The Raiders use Josh Jacobs, while the Chargers have Austin Eckler. I like the Raiders receiving core over the Chargers. The Raiders have Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow, plus a tight end who is one of the top tight ends in the league, Darren Waller. The Chargers must slow those players down on offense and get to Derek Carr. As for who's going to win, I have the Chargers as they earn the victory. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Dallas Cowboys. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a 2.5-point favorite. Tampa Bay has the better team. We all know about their offense, and it starts with Tom Brady, who can toss the ball to Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Julio Jones. The key in this game, though, for the Buccaneers is to run the football with Leonard Fournette. That will take the pressure off of Tom Brady, and it will open up the passing game. The Cowboys have Dak Prescott as quarterback. He can also run for first downs, but he can pass it too. For the Buccaneers, though, limit the running game of the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas will use Ezekiel Elliott, so you have to find a way to tackle him in the open field if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You do that and you should win the game. I am picking Dallas in a close game. The Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals are a 6.5-point favorite. The Steelers have a new quarterback, Mitch Trubisky. He cannot turn the ball over. If you're Mitch Trubisky, find your open receivers early and often. For the Bengals offense, they can run the football with Joe Mixon, which will be key to opening up the passing game for Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, their quarterback, can find T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Tyler Boyd. For the Steelers defense, you have to put pressure on Joe Burrow. You want to sack him. Make him throw it sooner than he wants to. We all know that the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is pretty good at not only sacking the quarterback, but pressuring the quarterback. If you're going to do that, then those are turnovers, and you want to give the ball back to Mitch Trubisky as they try to do something with great field position. In the end, though, I really like the Cincinnati Bengals. I like their offense better, and their defense is just going to play a more sound game. And of course, turnovers are going to really determine this game, and I think the Bengals force more as the Bengals earn the victory. The Kansas City Chiefs versus the Arizona Cardinals. Kansas City is a 6.5-point favorite. Kansas City's, if you look at Kansas City offense, the Kansas City offense is really dangerous. Sure, they may not have Tyreek Hill at the wide receiver position for quarterback Patrick Mahomes, but they still have one of the best tight ends in the league in Travis Kelce. Also, Patrick Mahomes can find Juju Smith-Schuster. For the Cardinals defense, though, find a way to cover them. You also need a spy on Patrick Mahomes if you're the Cardinals defense, because he can run for first downs. For the Cardinals offense, Kyler Murray needs to not be a turnover machine. Protect the football. You cannot give Kansas City and this dangerous offense more possessions than they already have. In the end, though, I think the Kansas City Chiefs offense is too much as they score early and often. Plus, Kansas City forces more turnovers. They earn the victory. My picks again: Buffalo versus LA, Buffalo. Las Vegas Raiders versus the LA Chargers, LA Chargers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Dallas Cowboys, Dallas. Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Cincinnati Bengals, Cincinnati. Kansas City Chiefs versus the Arizona Cardinals, Kansas City. We will see how I did next week. I'm Jordan Long. This has been Under Review. Read my blog that I write Mondays through Thursdays with podcasts on Fridays at sports-scoop.com. Check out all the shows on the Sideline Sports Network and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of them. Also, a big announcement. We're going to have a special Cubfidential, which is our Cub show, next week, as we will be live on September 17th in Iowa with the Iowa Cubs. So please tune in to Cubfidential on September 17th, live from Iowa with the Iowa Cubs. This has been a Sideline Sports production.